work as a laborer in a small factory. Without any qualifications and having started working right after graduating from high school, I could never afford to quit my job no matter how low the pay was. Thanks to that, even though it's only mid-month, my wallet contains just a single $100 bill. There was about $500 in the bank, so I figured I'd manage somehow. At that moment, I saw a ragged-looking girl before me. She was wearing a uniform from some high school, but it was clear it wasn't from any school nearby. Moreover, despite it being the cold season, she wasn't wearing a coat, and her knees were scraped and her clothes were in disarray. What's wrong with that girl? Curiosity got the better of me, and I stopped to look at her. Isn't she going home? Sitting there at this hour. Maybe she's got a stomachache or something. She was rubbing her legs together and her hands from the cold. Occasionally, she would breathe on her hands to warm her frozen fingertips. If I leave her be, she might end up involved in some incident. So, what should I do? I decided to enter a nearby coffee shop, bought some hot drinks and donuts, and walked over to her. As I approached, the girl tensed up as if scared. Hey, good evening. Don't be scared, I won't do anything to you. You looked cold, so I was concerned. Here, would you like this? What I offered was a freshly bought hot lemon tea. She hesitantly reached out and held the lemon tea to her cheek to warm up. Aren't you hungry? Being hungry makes you feel even colder. Here, would you like to eat this? Not knowing what teenage girls like, I picked a donut at random. I wondered if she would accept it. As I offered it, the girl said in a small voice,
"Thank you."
And accepted it. Aren't you going home? She shook her head in denial. But she didn't say anything. Could it be that she ran away from home? I thought so, but fearing getting too involved, I wondered what to do. Then, the wind blew her skirt. What caught my eyes were her legs, covered in painful-looking wounds. What? Your legs? She quickly stretched her skirt to cover her legs, but I had already seen them. Did someone do this to you? Were you beaten or something? She stiffened and did not seem willing to talk. Okay, sorry. There are things you don't want to talk about, right? Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But if you stay here, you might get caught by some bad people. How about going home? She said in a small voice.
No, I was thinking of going to my dad's place. But it's far away.
Her father's place. That means, she's currently with her mother. I didn't know what was happened to her. But it didn't seem like a situation that would resolve easily. Why don't you call your dad? Maybe he can come pick you up.
I don't know the phone number. I don't even have a cell phone either.
I was surprised that a teenager nowadays didn't have a cell phone. Do you know the address? Do you know where it is? She nodded and showed me a small piece of paper. It had an address I didn't recognize. This is where you can meet him. She nodded. It does seem far, but I'm not sure. Besides, it's late already. Saying that, I took out my smartphone and searched the address. What came up was Greenwood Group. A construction company, maybe. I wrote down the number on a note and gave it back to her. This is the phone number I found by searching that address. You should call it tomorrow. Then you'll probably find out about your dad. It came up as Greenwood Group, so maybe your dad works for a construction company. I hope you can see him. Then, the girl showed me a bright smile. All right. You should stay at a nearby hotel tonight. I'll make a reservation for you. You can stay by yourself, right?
I don't have any money.
I had little money, though. I had a $100 bill in my wallet. Maybe it is enough for a stay. Thinking that, I said, "Don't worry. I can cover for one night. After a warm bath and a good night's sleep in a bed, you should call your dad."
But I can't pay you back.
Don't worry about it. You just need to hope you can meet your dad. With that, I made a reservation at a nearby hotel. I took her to a hotel where breakfast was included for $100, talked to the hotel staff, and handed over the money. I also asked them to allow her to make a phone call in the morning, and then I parted ways with her. I did a good deed. My wallet was empty, but being able to help the girl made me feel good as I went home. A few days later, I was called by the factory manager, Smith. Did you call for me? Being called by the manager was a first for me since I started working at the factory. I entered his office with a nervous look. He inside was wearing an expensive suit, not at all what you'd expect from a small factory's manager. He's the manager of such a small factory, and he's not wearing work clothes. I found it strange.
It's Jason, right?
Yes, sir, it's Jason Miller.
Right? You don't have to come here anymore.
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
It means you're fired.
I didn't know what to say to the sudden dismissal.
So, pack your things and leave.
Excuse me, please tell me why. Did I make a mistake that warrants being fired? I can't recall doing anything wrong.
We don't need a troublemaker like you in our company.
It doesn't make sense. What makes me a troublemaker?
You have connections with the mafia, don't you?
What? No way, that's not true.
Man, it's unbelievable. I gave you a job even though you only graduated from high school, and now you're involved with the mafia. I couldn't believe it.
That must be some mistake. I've never been involved with the mafia, nor have they ever bothered me.
You can say whatever you want, right? But the fact is, the mafia is looking into you. As a company, we can't employ someone like that. We never wanted to hire a high school graduate in the first place. The previous boss used to say nice things like if someone is motivated, that's enough, even if they're just a high school graduate. Really, he caused me a lot of trouble.
Please, I really have nothing to do with the mafia. If I lose this job, how am I supposed to survive?
I don't care if you end up dead on the street. That's none of my business. Why don't you ask the mafia for help? I'm sure they'll help you out.
I really have nothing to do with the mafia. It must be some mistake. Please, don't fire me.
No, the decision is final. We don't need antisocial elements in a small factory like ours. Next time you apply for a job, don't lie about stuff like this.
I'm not lying. I've never been involved with such people.
So, were you hanging out with delinquents in high school? Are those the kind of people looking for you?
That's not possible. Please, Mr. Smith. I'm telling you the truth.
Enough, just leave. I've told the office to pay you for today. Don't ever show your face at our company again.
I kept repeating, there must be some mistake, but he wouldn't listen at all, looking at me as if I were trash. Then he said with pointing at the door,
Is that all you've got to say? I've heard your side of the story, and that's enough. Now, get out. I've got work to do.
It's all over. Realizing it was the end, I received a thin envelope in the office. That was my last paycheck from the company. Was the 15 years I worked so hard for really so meaningless, to be ended with just this thin envelope? When I said goodbye to my colleagues, they said,
"Why so suddenly?"
That's ridiculous.
expressing their regret over my departure. But no matter how much my colleagues regretted it, there was no changing the manager's mind, nor was there anyone willing to convey those feelings to him. They all knew that if they did something like that, they would be the next ones to be cut off. Leaving those colleagues with a "take care," I exited the gates of the company I had been going through for 15 years. What am I supposed to do now, being fired so suddenly? All I have is this thin envelope. I just hope I can find another job before it runs out. With those thoughts, I could only see the ground beneath my feet. Then, in my downward gaze, I spotted a black tire coming to a stop. Why would a car stop here? Curious, I looked up. It was a black luxury car.
It's in the way.
Naturally, I thought so.
Must be some big shot. Here for the factory. Then he should just hurry up and get inside the factory grounds.
Then, the driver with gloved hands came out of the driver's seat and respectfully opened the rear door. A man in an expensive suit and a girl came out. The man asked the girl,
Is this the guy?
The girl nodded in confirmation. Seeing that nod, I exclaimed,
Oh. You're the girl from that time. So, you did meet your dad, right? That's great. I'm really glad you were able to meet him safely.
Forgetting my recent sorrows, I spoke to her. She smiled brightly and hugged me.
Thanks to you, my daughter could safely come to me. Thank you.
You're her dad. That's great. I was worried about her but had no way to contact you after that.
By the way, you're leaving the company so early, got somewhere to be?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
I forced a dry laugh. There was no way I could tell someone I just met that I had just been fired. Especially not to someone who's probably a company president. I recognize him so due to riding in such a fancy car and dressed so well. I shouldn't even be speaking to someone like him.
If you're not in a hurry, I'd like to show my gratitude. It's almost lunchtime, how about a meal?
No, thank you. That's too much. I couldn't possibly accept your gratitude for something I should naturally do.
Come on, don't be like that. Of course, if you have other plans, I won't insist, but if you're free, could you join me? I wouldn't feel right letting you go without properly thanking you. After all, you saved my daughter, and a simple thanks just doesn't cut it.
I initially refused because there was really nowhere a recently fired guy like me had to be. However, in such a downtrodden state, looking for another job wasn't likely to go well. Thinking that, I said,
If you insist, then I'll accept your kind offer.
And decided to go along. I got into the car and was taken to a high-end restaurant.
Excuse me, I'm dressed like this.
I was wearing work clothes, not exactly the attire for a high-end restaurant. I had thought we'd be going to something like a diner at most, so I was surprised. But the man laughed heartily and said,
Don't worry about it. Clothes don't eat the meal.
He then pushed me forward. He must be a regular, as the hostess didn't make a fuss and even smiled me. The atmosphere in that private room was extremely luxurious and extraordinary. I thought on the spot like,
wow, looks very gorgeous. A bit uncomfortable, though.
It was tough being in such a prestigious place for me as a high school graduated. Yet, as the drinks started flowing, things began to feel different. The smile of the girl and the conversation between father and daughter. Just that was enough to warm my heart, not to mention the fine drinks and luxurious food. At what I thought could be the first and last feast of my life, I was thoroughly enjoying every bite. After a while, the man revealed his identity.
I should have introduced myself at the beginning, but that's just who I am.
He said, handing me a business card that read, Boss of Greenwood Family.
Oh my God. Mafia? Oh, excuse me.
No problem, you're right. But you know, a mafia is also a parent. Thanks to you, I could reunite with my daughter. I'm grateful.
Oh, yes, my pleasure. By the way, may I ask? I've been wondering why she was there that day.
That's because, actually, her mother and I divorced years ago. She remarried not long after. Her new husband seemed to be the vice president of a small factory. But after she passed away, his new wife moved in. At the same time, the president of the factory who had been kind to my daughter also passed away. Then, the vice president succeeded to the president's post, but from then on, my daughter was treated like a nuisance.
Could it be, that's why her legs were bruised?
Yeah, that's right. She was hurt where it wouldn't show. Especially her back, it was terrible. Can't imagine how much it hurt. Her mother gave her an amulet before she died. Told her if she ever went to the other side, to open it and get help.
That was the note.
Yeah. Not writing down a phone number was a bit of an oversight. She was desperately trying to find me. But as much as she's a high school student, it was quite a distance to walk. By the time you found her, her wallet was empty. She might have ended up frozen to death if it continued like that.
That was the situation. I thought there must be some circumstances.
As for her mother's new husband, I just can't forgive him. He made her go through so much. I swore to get revenge. Oh, it doesn't sound good for a mafia to say such things, does it?
I understand how you feel.
Thanks. What about you? Leaving work at such an hour, something must have happened, right?
It's odd saying this to someone I just met, especially a boss, but I was actually fired just now.
Fired? Why?
That's because I was wrongfully accused of having connections with antisocial forces. I have no idea how it came to that. Just this morning, out of the blue, I was told that and then fired.
Huh? Wait a minute. Hey.
The boss called over an executive standing by. After a whispered exchange, he exclaimed,
Idiots.
And turned to me.
I'm terribly sorry. That was my fellow's fault.
What do you mean?
I wanted to thank you so much that I had my guys check up on you. They found out where you worked but wanted to make sure you were really there. Seems like they mentioned our organization's name over the phone. That's probably what got back to you.
Right, so that's why they said I was involved with antisocial forces.
It was a complete frame-up.
I'm really sorry. Let me make this right. I'll talk to the manager tomorrow, explain the misunderstanding, and everything should work out.
No. I'm okay.
Shouldn't be okay. You must be in trouble, right?
Yes, it would be a lie to say I'm not troubled. But going back to work under such a manager would just be the same old story. I don't want to work under someone who doesn't trust his employees.
I see. So, you got something else lined up?
No. Embarrassingly, I have absolutely nothing. Honestly, if I don't find something by the end of the month, I'm in a bad spot. But still, I'm thinking of standing firm as a man.
Good on you. In that case, how about I introduce you to a company run by an acquaintance of mine? They're not involved with the mafia or anything. I think my friend would like you.
No, that's okay.
I wish I could cling to this offer. I want to jump at this opportunity. That's the truth. But should I really do that? After all, the other party is involved with the mafia. Even if they say they're not involved with the mafia, can I believe that 100%?
Is that so? Well, if you ever find yourself in a bind, call the number on my card. I'm always here to help.
The boss said that with a laugh. Though, about a month later, I ended up needing his help. No matter how many interviews I went to, I couldn't land a job. Thus, I was thinking I'd have to settle for part-time work.
I'm in the mood for a drink, but I've got no one to drink with. Would you mind keeping me company? Don't worry about the money, I'm asking for your company, after all.
The boss made sure to put himself lower to not burden me, inviting me in such a way. Even though he was a member of the mafia, I was surprised to find such a person existed and decided to accept, if it was a bar.
You really don't want much, right?
That's not true.
I'm offering to treat you, and here you are picking a bar over a fancy restaurant.
Well, I've never been to a fancy restaurant. It makes me restless. Honestly, I feel more at ease in a casual bar.
I see. Guess I wasn't very considerate.
No,
not at all. Holding a beer mug, I said. I'll take this with thanks. And gulped down the beer.
So, did you find a job?
Actually, not yet. Being a high school graduated, it seems quite difficult. I've applied to quite a few companies, but no luck.
That's fortunate.
Sorry.
Yeah. I was thinking, would you mind lending me a hand?
For a moment, it felt like my heart skipped a beat. Being asked by the mafia to lend a hand, I couldn't help but think of nothing good. He continued speaking. Man, how can I refuse after hearing his suggestion? It seemed he understood my reluctance, as his proposal was far from what I had imagined.
Even though I'm with the mafia, it doesn't mean we only do bad things. I just want to serve justice to the man who tormented my daughter.
Justice.
Yes, over the past month, I've been investigating who exactly did such horrible things to my daughter. It turned out to be the manager of the company you worked for. He acts as the manager of that factory. The previous manager used to wear work clothes and get involved on the floor, but this guy wears expensive suits and never shows his face in the factory. He lives in a luxury residential area over 1 hour away by car.
So that's why he always arrived late.
Exactly. A classic case of executive timing. My daughter was practically his maid, and it seems she wasn't even fed properly, crying while eating a single bagel.
Really? That bad?
Yes, it's true. How dare he do that to my daughter?
He muttered with frustration and finished his beer.
That's why I absolutely want to revenge my daughter.
But when you talk about revenge,
Of course, I'm not planning anything bad. I don't want to end up in jail and miss out on my time with my daughter for a scumbag like him. So, we're going to do it legally.
legally,
Yes, that's why I set up a company.
what kind of company?
It's in the same industry, but really, there's nothing to it. What I really want to do is take over that company.
Take over.
Yeah, take over. We'll take it over and kick the manager out. I've got all the dirt on him. He's got a considerable amount of personal debt, mostly from gambling and such, and now he's using the company's profits to cover his debts.
Is he?
Yes. That's why the employees' wages are so low. They dropped significantly after the previous manager passed away.
That's true, our salaries did drop sharply after the previous manager died.
That's the scheme. You all were working for his benefit. So, I want to kick him out of the company and make it a place where the employees can earn the wages they deserve.
What will happen to that manager if he's kicked out?
Well, I guess he'll end up in a debt hell. Plus, his wife seems to have married him only for his money. If she finds out he's no longer the president, she'll probably leave him. And socially, I'll make sure no company will hire him.
You can do that.
Hey, I'm the boss of the Greenwood, okay? Stuff like that is easy for me.
I see.
I asked for your help because you were also a victim of his actions. I thought maybe you'd want revenge too.
Yes, I think all the employees would feel the same way once they know about this.
They probably would. If this goes well, I plan to expand that factory even more. And I want to make you the manager.
Me, manager?
Yes, I like you. Plus, you understand how that factory works, right? You're the perfect person for the job.
But, I'm just a high school graduated. That's impossible.
What are you talking about? Back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for high school graduates to be presidents. If you lack education, you make up for it with experience and hard work.
Saying that makes me feel like I could do it.
Right? If you become the manager, I can rest easy leaving it in your hands. The first task will be taking over the factory. How about it? Are you in?
I understand. Count me in.
Good. Then tonight, We'll drink to the future of the new company.
Thus, I found myself unexpectedly involved in the takeover plan of the factory that had fired me. A month later, I had thoroughly investigated the factory and the manager from all angles. We decided to cause significant financial damage to the factory through our takeover plan.
Long time no see, Mr. Smith.
Oh, have we met somewhere before?
You wouldn't remember a high school graduated employee.
What?
It's Jason Miller. I was fired under the false accusation of having connections with the mafia.
No,
That was just the Greenwood calling to confirm if I was an employee. You used that as a reason to fire me, a high school graduated, right?
Well, that's not exactly how it was.
Well, it's okay. Thanks to that, I managed to land a job at my current company under favorable conditions. I have no hard feelings. Instead, I've come to you with a good offer.
A good offer? You mean, you want to contract with us?
Yes, your products are of very high quality. That's something I know from working here for years. That's why I want to make a contract worth $5 million.
$5 million?
Yes. I'd like you to deliver that amount of goods within 2 weeks. Once the delivery is confirmed, we'll transfer the $5 million.
That would be appreciated.
So, will you accept this contract?
Of course.
I placed the contract on the table and asked him to sign. Without reading the content, he overjoyed by the mention of $5 million and signed it. Knowing the manager's lack of administrative skills, I anticipated it, but it was still amusing to think that was how a company manager behaves. Once the contract was signed, he spurred the employees on. He cracked the whip on the employees, ordering them to work without sleep. Indeed, the goods were produced, but when it came time for delivery, a problem arose. No delivery company would accept the job. Of course, that was because the Greenwood had put a stop to it. Desperate, Smith himself went looking for any carrier. That's when a truck driven by a member of the Greenwood arrived. The goods were loaded, and dozens of trucks set off. But along the way, they stopped for various reasons, like vehicle malfunctions. Eventually, the goods didn't arrive by the deadline. I immediately contacted Smith and went back to the factory.
The goods didn't arrive by the deadline. Now, our company has suffered a huge loss. This is a breach of contract.
No, we shipped everything properly.
It's clearly stated in the contract, isn't it? If the goods don't arrive, you'll pay $5 million.
That's ridiculous. I don't know anything about such a clause.
Mr. Smith, whether you know it or not, it's clearly written here. Saying you didn't read it won't cut it.
No way. My company doesn't have $5 million.
Then, there's no choice but to take this factory.
This factory?
That's also written here. Even if the accident was caused by the carrier, your company bears all responsibility. You've signed it, haven't you?
Wait, what a thing to do. Without the factory, it'll be a disaster.
It seems so. No one will pay off the personal debts you've made anymore.
How did you know that?
That's not all. Your wife will probably leave you too. Seems she married you for your wealth.
Hey, you knew all along and made this contract.
It's not just me who resents you. That's why this happened. Now the factory belongs to our company. Pack your things and leave.
Unbelievable, with all my debt.
He slumped down, wailing in despair. After being kicked out of the factory, he talked to his wife about the situation, asking her to help pay off the debt. However, since his wife had lived a life of luxury until then, she decided to cut ties with the now penniless manager and slammed the divorce papers down. She mercilessly demanded compensation, burying him under an unimaginable amount of debt. That resulted in an unbelievable amount of debt, so it left him into a pit of suffering. When I reported the entire affair to the boss, he was pleased and praised me.
Now, he won't be employed by any company ever again. He'll truly understand what it means to betray people.
Yes. I hope he struggles in the depths of hell.
Right. Now, you're the manager of that factory. You'll make the company grow for the employees.
For you, right?
No, that's not it. I didn't do this for myself. I did it for my daughter, you, and the employees who are working hard at that factory. So, make sure those employees are happy. Got it?
Yes, sir, understood.
Thus, I returned to the factory as its manager, and my former colleagues were happy to have me back.
Thank you all for staying. Now, let's work hard to grow the factory and ensure everyone gets the salary they deserve. This factory belongs to all of us.
I promised them during my inaugural speech. The colleagues cheered and welcomed me back.